Today, we discuss all things 103 in your Dynasty rookie drafts. We're going to talk how to value this pick if you're contending, if you're rebuilding, if you're trying to tier up, tier down, or just move to a different position of need, as well as who we are taking here with this pick today. Stick around for all that and more. And welcome into the Dino Construction Podcast. Justin joined with David and JP here. Very excited to continue talking about what we are doing trade-wise, strategy-wise with every pick in this first round of this rookie draft. Context pieces. This is Tight End Premium. This is Superflex. If you're not playing in that, because that's how we're evaluating it, 1.75 Tight End Premium, move quarterback and tight ends down a little bit. Don't be considering them in the same tier we are. Probably move them down a tier is the best rough estimate. So all that being said, 103, very interesting pick. We're still at that type of value range. I think where there's, even though we consider this it's a tier, 102 to 105, I think there's a psychological advantage to being at the 102 and the 103 because those are the early first. I think people they want to make picks. They want to choose within the tier, or maybe they don't consider everyone in the tier. So how are you trying to capitalize on this pick? Do you view that, first of all, JP, as a higher value pick just because of that early first connotation? Do you think there is a psychological aspect there you can take advantage of?
Yeah, a little bit. And people are going to be player takey in the dynasty markets. I mean, everybody has their own preferences. Some people are more just process based and some people are more player take based. So I think 103, obviously, if you're going to move down, you're going to want to acquire a little bit of value, but also there could be a landing spot that you hate. Like personally, I think the Jets might be a bad wide receiver landing spot because you got a stud there and you got no quarterback. So I think in that scenario, I'm definitely going to want to be at 103 versus 104 if I don't need quarterback. So I think this could be a point where it's a little mini tier break. I think that's definitely a chance of that, but I still think right now I'm going to view it as one big tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tier for now. It could easily change, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit more as to why I think maybe a certain player should go at this pick over other ones. So I don't want to bury the lead with my case, but that is part of it. We don't know where these receivers are going to go. So if we get wide receiver 2 to the Jets, that kind of scares us off 105. If you don't need a quarterback, like JP said, that puts you to 103. So just be mindful of that.
And just for a little bit of context, in our series here, we've already picked at the 101. We've already picked at the 102. If you want to hear the case we made for Tate, if you hear the case we made for Love, you can listen to those videos. But now at the 103, we do have 2 wide receivers we're going to consider to be left still in this tier in Tyson and Lemon, as well as, of course, the QB1, the presumed 101 to the Raiders, Fernando Mendoza. If you want to hear kind of the case we have for Tyson, he is David's 102 in this class. He made a great case in our 102 video. He, of course, is a phenomenal. He was the wide receiver 1 coming into this year, a little bit of a down year. Some of that is injury. Some people are worried it's more than that he's not as dynamic, etc. David, I think, made a great case in that video. JP, I know you have been a Lemon guy for a really long time, and I know, David, you've been making the case that Mendoza, honestly, maybe should be in consideration at the 102 because of positional scarcity. So go ahead and talk to our audience a little bit about that, guys.
Yeah, with Mekhi Lemon, I just think that he might have the best analytical profile of all the wide receivers in this draft class. He's also an early declare. He's got no injury history, and the guy is just so good. The RP results dropped for Lemon, and I thought it was one of the most impressive outside of one other guy that we were going to talk about later in this series. But Mekhi Lemon was always kind of worried about his size, but the fact that he came in at over 5'11", 190 plus pounds, I'm not as worried about. There's a couple of holes in his game, and I think one of them is the lack of length hurts him against press coverage, so he's not going to be able to operate as an X wide receiver. But I do think that he will be able to win as an outside wide receiver. He had over 3.0 yards per route run versus zone versus man. And actually, he had a higher yards per route run against man than he did. He actually had a higher yards per route run on the outside than he did on the inside when he was running out of the slot. So I do think that he can be a flanker outside wide receiver, just not lining him up on the line of scrimmage. So I think that the fact that he only really has that hole in his profile other than the long speed to run 9 routes, I think you just put him as the flanker and slot, and you're hiding all those things, and you're getting all the fantastic benefits of him as a yak threat, a guy who can win against man coverage. He can beat zone coverage, And he has really, really good ball skills for a smaller guy. His contested catch rate was actually just spectacular and something you do not expect to see from somebody his size. So I just think for a really, really well-rounded player like this, somebody who's very, very fantasy friendly, because I think he's going to be a guy who's going to get design looks, intermediate looks, and it just be a target monster potentially, and just be somebody we'd love to start in PPR leagues. So he'd be the player I would be taking here at 103. And also, when it comes to wide receiver, they're just the most liquid position in all of Dynasty.
First off, like Justin said, Jordan Tyson is my highest ranked player on this list. He's who I would take in a vacuum. But when we were going through this series, I made the case that Fernando Mendoza should be the 103, and these guys kind of pushed back on it. So I kind of wanted to expand on that and explain why I think he should be the 103. This group is a tier. I like all these players in this tier. Team and league context absolutely should help sort this tier out for you. So if you don't need a quarterback, that's fine. Move him down. If you do need a quarterback, I'm okay taking him at the 102, but when we're just talking in a vacuum here, I think it's highly unlikely all three wide receivers get both the draft capital we expect and get pushed to an offensive ecosystem we like. There's a decent chance, as we've mentioned, the Jets wide receiver 2 is one of these players. There's a decent chance the Giants wide receiver 2 is one of these players. It could go wrong. One of these guys could fall to the second. We thought Luther Burden was going to be a top half of the first rounder, at least the first rounder at the worst last year. So I'm a little bit worried about all three getting both the draft capital and at least a decent landing spot. And for me, quarterback's just such an important position. So we got Mendoza's positional value. We think we know where he's going to go. It's going to be a pretty good place. I mean, the Raiders are going to be better. It's not going to be a great offense. I'm not trying to say it's a great situation, but 101s have gone into much worse situations than he's going to be walking into. You talk about him, he's a big guy. He's athletic enough. His arm is strong enough. Those aren't things you love. You wish they were elite, but his elite traits are the harder ones to coach, in my opinion. It's the processing, it's the anticipation, it's the ball placement, it's the leadership things that everyone raves about. So I really like him as a quarterback prospect. If I thought he was going to be a bust, I'd definitely take the receivers over him. But I think he's a pretty good prospect. And I do have a little bit of data. Went back to 2020, looking at all first-round players at receiver and quarterback, looking at their May ADP rookie year and then May ADP 1 year into their careers. For rookies from last year, we only have March ADP because March just finished. We're not quite to May. Look at the wide receivers compared to the quarterbacks. 32 wide receivers, 21 quarterbacks. Small sample size. Don't draw massive conclusions from this, but I think it points to quarterbacks being a safer pick. Look at the percentage of players that went down in both positional and overall value. At receiver was 47% went down, 50% went up. At quarterback, 33% went down, 57% went up. So in general, they're gaining more value. You look at massive jumps, which I decided 2 rounds of value overall, or plus 12 at receiver, plus 6 at quarterback positional value, just because there's less quarterbacks. At receiver, 28 went down, 34% went up. At quarterback, 10% went down, 43% had a massive jump. The biggest one for me is top 36 overall players after their first year. So just top 36 overall after their first year, regardless of what they were as a rookie. Wide receivers, 28%, quarterbacks, 57%. So basically double the percent of being a cornerstone player in my eyes after year one, just by simply being a quarterback. Justin, I know I went on a little long there. If you need to cut some out and post, that's fine. That's my case for why I would take Fernando Mendoza at 103. I would take my wide receiver 1 first, and then I would put Mendoza after him and the next 2 wide receivers.
Before I kind of digest and actually kind of break a tie that we have between some of these players here, I do want to just say one thing on the value potential there for quarterbacks, etc. I do think what we are going to see, though, if we see a quarterback that does not perform, is high price at the beginning and a massive dip in value as the season goes back on. We saw that with Ward this past year, and then we're going to see that value go back up as the offseason comes on and people have excitement about year 2, etc. I do think that if you think Mendoza is going to produce year 1, or if Mendoza does produce year 1, this buy window I'm going to talk about won't happen. I do think there's a very good chance of a risk of there being a big dip in Mendoza's value if he does not produce. And well, there's a lot of things we do like about Oakland's situation improving from last year. If we don't like, there's a lot of things we don't like about Vegas's situation. There's a lot of things we like about Vegas's situation improving from last year. However, they did just earn the 101 still, and I think we still need to pump the brakes in a little bit on that. This situation is phenomenal because his only real trusted wide receiver is a tight end who is phenomenal. But yeah, so that being said, let's also take a look at what we can do before we actually make the pick. We're always going to man the phones. We're always going to look at trades. And there's some interesting trades we saw either in real leagues or on dynastydaddy.com. The 103 and Justin Jefferson or Puka Nacua. I don't even care about the 301 coming back. That's that's nice, but you're not doing it for the 301 when there's behemoths involved in the trade. Whew, in start 11, it's hard to consolidate those, but I think I might still lean Puka Nakua. David, I know you've been slower to raise the red flags and sound the alarm about Jefferson than I have.
This is one of them big boy trades, isn't it? I think I'm still going to side with Jefferson. Now, if we're talking start 9, maybe start 10, I think I'm pretty interested in the Puka side. If I'm just super asset rich and I don't, like, if there's no chance the 103 is going to hit my lineup unless things go really poorly, I'm okay taking the Nakua side. I think Jefferson has a few more very high end seasons left in him. I trust in Kevin O'Connell. A little worried about Kyler, but I think it's going to be an upgrade from last year. And then that 103, I mean, that's a pretty high end player we're talking about here. We're talking about one of these receivers or potentially a quarterback that could be a cornerstone asset. So, man, the more starters you got to start, the more I like the left side. I think I'm probably going with the left side in most situations.
I am also worried about Justin Jefferson, but I am going to go with that side because I still think he's a great wide receiver. And even if I'm worried about him, just the value that he has in the market, I think I can move him. According to Keep Trade Code, we can move him for something around Ashton Genty, Jeremiah Love, Joe Burrow. That might be a little optimistic, but I just think the 103 I value around 2 firsts of value, and then Jefferson can still get me something at least worth 2 firsts of value, if not a little bit more. So I think the value is on his side here.
I do think it's a lot to pay. I think the value is probably on Jefferson's side. I think you guys have talked me off of the Puka side. Now moving on to the 103 for a 27 first and the 206.
I'm gonna roll with the 103. I still think that's, like I said, worth around 2 firsts in value. The 27 first, like, man, I get it. Like, it is very, very exciting. If you tell me that has a pretty good chance of missing the playoffs, like, I'm heavily considering that 27 first because that's going to be a great, great player as well. But I still think that 103 is a guaranteed great, great prospect.
If I feel like there's a decent chance that's not a playoff first, I'm interested. Otherwise, there's no way. I would need probably at least like 112, 111 before I'm really thinking about it. I mean, we were just talking about from the 102, we would need the 109, right? And that we were talking about in the 102 video. So this is pretty far off for me unless that 27 first is one to target, in which case target it.
What I would say this more speaks on is the irresponsible disregard people have for this 26 class. You might be able to bundle a true dart shot, the dart throw that the 206 is. That's just, in this class, the 206 you have a 30% chance of it hitting, probably, honestly, is my kind of just like mental math, and a 27 first for the 103. If that's it could be in the playoffs, it could miss. It's truly random, like 27 first, and you're getting a top end 103 right here. Like, I think if it's not my 27 first, so that I don't have to worry about giving up my flexibility midseason and I'm not that truly random team, I think I'm pretty willing to start trying to like throw out some offers like this on some teams where I'm flush in 27 first and don't have a lot of exposure to this draft class, as long as it's not a guaranteed early one. Next, we have the 103 or Emeka Egbuka. Interesting. JP, I hate you. Also, JP, I want to talk about a trade that you have that's unrelated to the fact that I hate you. You actually managed to move the 105 for Egbuka in a league, bearing the lead. We'll probably talk about that in a later episode. So are you willing to move the 103 for him as well, though, in a vacuum?
It's definitely more difficult, but I do still lean on the Egbuka side because we've seen it in the league. And I think that the spot that he's in is pretty good. Even though I love Mekhi Lemon, I don't know if he's going to get a spot. I mean, like we mentioned, the Jets, the Giants, there's plenty of spots where he could go that's not that great. And then there's the interview thing with Mekhi Lemon. He could still fall to the back half of the first round because of those concerns. So I'm going to stick with the proven asset right here.
David, I'll ask you the same question, but I also want to ask you first, then I want to get JP's opinion too. And just, where would Egbuka fit into this year's rookie class? Is he in the same tier as these guys? Would he be the wide receiver 1, etc.?
Like as a prospect or based on what we know now?
What we know now, honestly.
I think I prefer him to this grouping of players right now. I think post-draft that could definitely change once we know where players are. But I like the offense he's in. I like the situation he's in. He's shown he can be successful at the NFL level. So for me, I am going to take Egbuka over the 103. I do think, though, this is spoiler alert, so I don't know why we're jumping around on videos like this, but this is how that trade happened for JP getting the 105 for Egbuka. If you need access to the quarterback, you're trying to get to Mendoza, I'm fine moving Egbuka for it. I'm just not moving Egbuka for one of these receivers right now because I also don't really like 1-for-ones within the same position, especially if they're both young players. That would feel weird to me to move Egbuka to try and get a young wide receiver. I favor Egbuka. Like I said, though, if you're trying to get to Mendoza, I think this is a good way to try and approach that.
And JP, is he in the same tier as these other wide receivers, or do you kind of value him above them? Just give me that quick breakdown.
In our last tier video, we had him in the same tier with these rookie wide receivers. That was before we knew that Mike Evans left. So I had him on the back end of that tier before. Probably is the top end. So I think he probably would be my wide receiver 1 right now, but it's a thin margin right now.
All right, interesting. And the last pick we have here, the 102, the 103, they're being traded. It's the 103 and a 27 second for the 102 and a 27 third. So they're doing a pick swap, a second for a third round in the future to get their pick of guys within this tier. Somebody thinks that they are smart and knows who the best player is. Process probably says it's a decent opportunity to just pick up some extra value, but are we picking up enough extra value to give somebody else what they value in their pick?
I think this is one of those, if you're on the clock and you really don't care between 102 and 103 and this is the best offer you have, like, that's fine. I would take it. But at this point in the offseason where we don't have the NFL draft yet, we don't have that information, I'd rather stick at the 102. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe only one of these guys gets somewhere we truly love and the whole community agrees now that we have a unanimous 102. I kind of doubt that happens this year, but it could. And if that happens, you really wish you were at the 102 because you'd be able to get more than a 2-3 swap involved. So like I said, if I'm on the clock, this is the best I can do and I don't care about 102 or 103, that's fine. But short of that, I don't think it's quite enough value for me to move down.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I do think those 27 seconds are going to be pretty darn valuable because the quarterback class, if it is shapes up to be pretty deep, there's 4 first rounders and then the wide receiver class. I think the tight end class, like there's a couple of guys that are interesting at the top still. So I think the 27 seconds might actually be pretty solid value propositions. So I kind of like the deal, but I think what you said, David, makes the most sense. There's no point in making this trade yet until we have the post-draft information.
Yeah, I'm going to agree there. More information and no reason to make this trade now whatsoever. I think you're leaving value on the table by making this deal right now. Although profit within a tier, never the worst thing that you can do.
What if we feel like it's going to be like a top 3 or 4 second? We're pretty darn confident. Are you interested still, or you still want to be patient? I think I'm still going to be patient, but like I'd at least have to think about it if I felt it was going to be an early second.
I think I would tell them, if you want this done right now, let's take off the 27 third.
I would do that. I would on the dotted line. Yep.
If it's a non-playoff second, so it's an earlier second, who knows how high it can go, and then yeah, let's talk. We've talked through a lot of different trade situations. I think we've done a good job of kind of hammering in a value of this pick. Now we're going to go ahead and actually make a pick here. In the end, I'm not going to be going quarterback because I think I've talked through a little bit earlier, although David makes a very compelling point. I think if it was a different prospect at quarterback who I think had more rushing upside, I think I'd view it a little differently. Not that he's not mobile at all, he's just not, that's not his calling card or why we love him, etc. And although David loved and has been a great case for Tyson, I do think I like the PPR prospect that is Lemon just a little bit more, and I'm going to break that tie between the two. We just voted on who to take here at this point. David Tyson, JP and I Lemon. That's just the direction we're going to go here. We'd love to hear your feedback in the audience if we're making a mistake here. If you have Mendoza, if you think Lemon should have went 102, if you think Tyson should be going here. Is there a dark horse? Are you just a huge Sadiq fan? Anybody else? Let us know in the comments. Let us know any trade questions you have at the 103, and make sure that you hit that like, hit that subscribe so you can catch the 104 and all subsequent videos as well. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dino Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen or view. And from all of us here at the Dino Construction Podcast, until next time.